So, in the identification and design phase, we developed a logical framework and we identified our activities, timeline, and budget in a proposal. Then, in project setup, we established a governance system, signed a charter, and launched. So, why does the planning phase start now? At this point in a project, we've likely been planning for months. While the project plan is not a what to do, it does help us clarify how to do it. Many ICT projects operate off of their logical framework as an implementation plan, but the log frame only shows why the activities are the right ones to achieve the goals. The project charter just agrees on the rules for achieving the goals. Consider a scavenger hunt. You and your team are given a list of items to collect, a few rules, and a time to report back. The judge says go, and every team takes off to implement. Some do everything together, going from the top to the bottom of the list. Some split the list up by location, some by the skill of the team members, or other ways. Even the ones that do not seem to plan at all are actually implementing a plan, just not a conscious one. Just like in completing a scavenger hunt, the implementation plan for a project is about optimizing resources to ensure you get the best quality results within the time and cost permitted. Look at the table on page 98 of the guide to compare your previous documents for the proposal with the implementation plan. The full implementation plan consists of several smaller plans or documents showing that you have mapped out all of the elements for implementation. For this class, you will complete elements of the schedule plan and the monitoring, evaluation, and learning plan. In order to do that, you will need to consider, but not submit, some of the other plans. Let's look at those and how they relate to the planning phase. First, the risk plan. You already have a risk analysis in place. You will need to review to make sure nothing has changed, and then identify the risk management activities which need to go in the schedule. For example, how often during the project do you need to meet to review risk and ensure everything is within tolerances? Do the responsible people know what to look for, when to report, and to whom they report risk? These actions should be included in the schedule. This ties to the human resources plan. Too many organizations start hiring everyone in the beginning of the project. They're usually rushed because the start was delayed by some red tape. But is every position needed for the duration of the project? Probably not. Some can end early, some could start later, some may only be part-time. Or can some part-time jobs be merged to create a full-time position? Equally important, what about training? Are the onboarding and trainings already created, or do they need to be made? Things like safety and security, documentation and reporting training all need to be managed for new hires and volunteers. Like human resources, other resources are not all needed at the same time. Supply chain or procurement plan identifies which assets, materials, and supplies are needed, when they are needed, how and where they will be purchased, stored, and delivered. The communication plan is also a forgotten component of project management. Usually there are reporting requirements for the donors and for head office. But what about other stakeholders? How do you communicate project progress to the community, the local government, even your vendors? What about marketing and promotion to future or potential donors, project participants, others? People who do not receive regular communication as promised will assume the worst and can become an unexpected project risk if not included appropriately. One of the most essential communication elements is a feedback mechanism. How do stakeholders provide feedback to the project manager or about the project manager to the governing body of the project? Are these processes in place? Are they appropriately confidential and accessible despite language, literacy, or technology barriers? Everyone should have equity in providing feedback on the project. Finally, the RACI chart is a very helpful tool. For each activity or task, this table identifies who will do the task, the responsible person, who will guarantee the task, the accountable person, who must provide input or approval on the task, the consulted person, and who will receive updates on the task progress, the informed person. This tool is helpful to the project manager in identifying breakdowns in task management. The key distinction on this table is between responsible and accountable. Often we blur the line between these two. The responsible person is the one assigned to do the work. They're not necessarily accountable. What if they were assigned to do a task they were not competent to do? That's the fault of the person who assigned them, and they should be held accountable. Also, we often list the project manager as the responsible person for a task, but they will be assigning that task to someone else, so they may be accountable, but they're not responsible. The consulted person is emphasizing which tasks require sign off by someone else on the team before completing the task. Let's use a purchasing scenario as an example. For a purchase under $200, a procurement officer will likely be responsible for making the purchase, but the procurement manager will be accountable for all procurement expenses. There may not be any additional consulting or informing required. However, consider a purchase of a $25,000 piece of construction equipment. Rather than the procurement officer, the procurement manager may be required to make that purchase since he can sign the check, and so will be not only responsible but also accountable. However, that purchase may require consulting an accountant to ensure the funds are available and the construction manager to ensure the correct equipment is being purchased. The project manager and governing board will likely want to be informed of a purchase of that size. Again, all of these plans will tie into the schedule plan, and your schedule should include communication, human resources, supply chain, reporting activities. More importantly, the RACI defines how long an action may take. Let's look at that expensive construction equipment again. One could just go to a store and purchase the equipment with a credit card, walk out and say, activity done. However, for project management purposes, a procurement manager should first get detailed specifications from the construction team to ensure the equipment will do the job. Then, they will want to compare options to see the best place of purchase, considering price, availability, and quality. Then it will need to have their recommended choice signed off by the construction manager to document that consultation process. Also, if the procurement manager does not have a purchasing credit limit of $25,000, they will need to request access to the funds, probably from accounting. Since the manager is responsible is accountable for the expense, they will need to sign that request. Finally, after purchase, there will be documentation required to verify the purchase, and then the procurement team will be responsible to ensure timely delivery to the construction site and storage in the meantime. As you can imagine, with this many people involved and all of their own ongoing tasks, this is not necessarily a quick job. A project schedule needs to reflect the lead time for this purchase to avoid delays. In the next videos, we will look at the work breakdown structure and the Gantt chart, two tools which are part of the schedule plan.